Welcome to The Space Between. On this episode, I am joined by Sue Molnar. Sue is back for part 2 of her healing journey, where she discusses how psychedelics have impacted her path forward. Together, we discuss this hot topic of psychedelics and their place in therapy, the narratives surrounding these treatments, and the profound shifts in consciousness. Join us as we connect through conversation. Welcome to The Space Between. I'm Alyson Rixner, very excited to welcome back my dear friend, Sue Molnar, to The Space Between. Sue, welcome back.
Thank you, Alyson.
I'm so happy you're here.
Happy to be here. A little more comfortable this time.
Well, you kicked ass last time, and I got
into it.
So many amazing comments and just so many gems that you dropped. And it was such a beautiful conversation. So, part 2.
Part 2. Get into the good stuff this time. And I'm trying to remember all the things I forgot last time. You know, after you do something like that, I kind of just beat myself up about it. Like, oh, somebody's going to see that and think this or think that.
Right.
But anyway, so
Human condition.
I'm here to plug all the disclaimers that I didn't get in on the last one.
She's made a list and she's going to check it twice.
Okay.
Well, today we're talking about a very hot topic of psychedelics, psychedelic therapy, and in 2024, talk about something that has changed rapidly over the course of the last 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, I was just saying the other day, I didn't think in my lifetime I would see a day where marijuana was going to be legal.
Right.
And now, psychedelics are coming in hot.
Coming in strong. It is really incredible, and we're going to unpack it all. And just for the folks that maybe haven't seen an episode of the podcast before, The Space Between really is this interesting, transformative time of rapid change. And we're recording this mid to end of March, right before and around eclipse season. And it's officially the astrological new year. Hell yeah.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
excited.
you're the dragon.
It's here.
I'm a dragon.
It was on the 19th.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know?
No, I
said this is going to be my year. I didn't even know it was the year of the dragon.
Well, boy, wasn't that some beautiful foreshadowing? But the reason that I really wanted to bring this work into the world is that we are so incredibly disconnected. And the way that we can connect back to each other is having a conversation with ourselves, having a conversation with dear friends, having a public conversation like we're doing, and just throwing it all out there.
Letting it all hang out.
Yeah. And you said something really beautiful, and I can't quote you, but you said the way that we heal is to share our stories. It was something like that.
Well, that's how we help each other.
Absolutely.
If we keep everything inside, like all of my healing has come from other people sharing.
Yes.
And me finding it, doing research and being curious, like you said, and finding it. And it's from people writing books, people having podcasts, people having conversations, people having websites, and putting it out there for each other to find, you know? And so, and conversation, I realized, has helped me so much. People just talking.
Yeah.
And I got so much of my healing from people talking and sharing their stories. So let's keep talking, right? And keep connecting. Yeah, for sure.
That's a plug going on social media, folks. I'm always thinking, is this a real 2024 in the world we live in? Thank you. So we always start the podcast with the definition, and I'll do that, and then I'll introduce you and have you introduce yourself.
Okay.
So the definition of psychedelics from the Oxford Dictionary is drugs that induce changes in the level of consciousness of the mind. And I thought that was really kind of okay. I mean, you know, level of consciousness. I was surprised that came out of Oxford, because it is a consciousness shift when you do engage in a psychedelic therapy or medication. But the other flip side definition was the causing effects on the mind, such as feelings of deep understanding or unusually strong experience of color, sound, taste, and touch. And I was like, that feels old school to me. And the shift in consciousness feels kind of new age.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely did not embark upon a psychedelic healing journey to experience trippier colors and sights and sounds and tastes.
That's
you know,
old school. That's so like 60s, 70s,
that
right?
might be a fun byproduct, but
Absolutely.
yeah, no, but well, you know, we did the definition of healing the first time we were together.
Yes.
And one thing that I realized later was the definition said to make oneself or someone else healthy.
Yes.
Right? And I thought, interesting. There is that dynamic. Healing yourself or healing someone else, you know? And so there's that I feel like I did both. And by the way, I'm obviously not an expert on psychedelics. If you want, get Michael Pollan.
We are not experts on psychedelics. And I don't know that anybody really is right now. I mean, he's obviously in the forefront, but this is so new, the microdosing and the therapy.
Yeah,
right?
there's tons of research being done at Stanford and where Johns Hopkins.
And Harvard and Duke. I linked, when I was doing my research, I linked a bunch of stuff below. We're going to put it in the show notes so people can do their own research of what's going on out there.
You did the research. You have the links. I have the experience. That's all I have. I don't
This is what we're giving you today.
I don't have any expertise. I only have my experience with it. So I just wanted to put that little disclaimer out there.
It's a good disclaimer. We're going to need a few disclaimers on this one.
Okay.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, you know, how you arrived into psychedelic therapy? Check out episode 9, if I have it correct, Healing with Sue Molnar.
Okay.
It really is part 1, right? But very briefly, you know, if you'll just let folks know.
So it's funny. The one of the things you asked me at the beginning of the last session was, so tell us who you are. And I don't know if you saw it in my face, but I was like,
who am I?
Yes. I mean, that question is hard to answer when you're not expecting it.
Right.
Okay. Because first I have to credit Eckhart Tolle, because A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle is one of the most influential and profound books of my life.
Amen.
And I've read it and listened to it so many times. And he is adamant about, you're not who you think you are. And if you don't know who you are, that's okay and maybe a good thing. And we all define ourselves in all these different ways. I'm female. I'm this many years old.
My hair color.
This is what I do for a living. You know, whether I'm single or, you know, whether I have kids, you know, all these categories we place in ourselves. So when you said to tell us who you are, I was like, I'm a human being. I'm a soul or a consciousness inside of a human body.
That's the answer I get.
Right? And that's
the truth.
That's all that I really want to categorize. But anyway, so okay.
You're getting a clap.
Okay, checkbox for shouting out Eckhart Tolle, because he was all these people, whether famous or not, have been influential and crucial to what I feel like it has been my healing journey. Okay, so that's what I am. I'm a human being.
And a soul.
And
living in a human avatar with all these
seen
things
some
placed
shit
on
and
you.
I've done some shit, and I'm here to talk about it.
Yep. I love this. Came out.
If it can help you with your shit.
Yes.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's beautiful.
Oh, but what? And I just did so many. I got on a mission to figure out how to heal myself, and I did a bunch of different stuff that I talked about in the last podcast, and then it eventually led me. I don't even know what the first time I heard about psychedelic healing or therapy, but Michael Pollan crossed my path, and I read his book, This Is Your Mind on Plants, and then I heard right after that I heard a podcast from the CEO of this place called Myco Meditations in Jamaica, and I was like, that's where I need to go. I knew I guess I plateaued. Like, I did all this stuff to get better, and I still had things that a lot physically.
Right.
And I was like, I'm stuck. I need more. I need to do something different.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when the universe brought psychedelics into the picture for me. And like I said, when you're hitting the ground running and you're looking for things and talking to people and willing and asking, please bring it, like I said, I asked the universe, please bring me what I need to heal, then this stuff will just come into your life. And if you're open to it and paying attention, you know it when you see it. Okay, that's next.
Absolutely. When you said when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
And that's when the universe will open up. And what I think is interesting, and this definitely needs to be said, and I knew we'd get here, so here we are. There is kind of two schools, I don't want to say schools of thought, that's probably the wrong way to say it, but there is the recreational use of psychedelics.
Yes.
Right? Which I admittedly have partaken in for quite a bit of my life. I'm throwing it out there. I told myself I would be honest in this podcast, so as raw as it's going to get. And then there is the healing, microdosing, practitioner-assisted.
Yeah.
What would you call the place that you went to in Jamaica?
That's a psilocybin retreat.
Okay, so retreat assisted, and we'll talk about your experience there. But I think it's interesting when you think about the definitions, right? The taste and the color, those are things that I've experienced because I wasn't microdosing for a specific reason under the direction or help and assistance of somebody else, where the consciousness of the mind exists. But when you're microdosing, it seems like that's a little bit more of...
Be careful about saying microdosing because that's not what it is.
Well, sometimes it is. And then there's everything in between.
Right. But when you say that, I don't want somebody to hear that and think that psychedelic therapy is microdosing.
Right. So what should we call it? Because there's just taking something for the act of taking something to kind of like see what happens and transcend to another place. And then I guess it isn't necessarily a microdose because what you did was not, correct? Right.
I mean, yeah. So from what I've learned and experienced, most psychedelic therapy is not microdosing. Like microdosing is a form,
right?
But like treating depression and PTSD, right. It's more bigger doses,
right?
Assisted by and facilitated with a therapist,
right.
Someone trained.
That's important. Thank you for saying that.
Right.
Because there's a spectrum.
Different than microdosing.
Right. And I think there's a spectrum. And so because I think people think that that's the only way to do it, and that's not necessarily true. But yeah, to your point, there's this big rainbow of what you can do. So what are psychedelics? I'm going to list them because some people might not know.
Okay.
So I'm going to mention, I don't want to say street name, but the recreational name, we'll call it, and then the actual name. So there's acid and LSD and ecstasy and MDMA. Mm-hmm. There are shrooms, magic mushrooms, right? Psilocybin, ketamine. There isn't really, I guess,
special K.
Ayahuasca. I didn't see that there was two names for that.
I don't think there's a street name for ayahuasca.
Because no one's just
nobody's doing that at a rave,
right, or whatever. Yeah, not a good idea. And then DMT. So those were the ones. I don't know if I missed any. That was the ones that I saw in my research.
I don't think I know any more than that. And ketamine is almost like wondering if Andy Gibb was really a BG. Like ketamine, not necessarily a psychedelic.
No, it's considered because of the clinical studies.
Interesting.
And I thought the same thing. But I was like, okay. And I saw it on like 3 different articles. I thought, was it just one or two? But because they're actually studying it for that,
cool.
It's now thrown into one umbrella.
Before I get into the experiences of the psychedelics that I've done, because I've only done a couple, out of the list that you just read off. First, one thing I feel like I failed to mention the first go around was all the people in my life that were willing to help me, just help me by showing up and actually offering their healing services to me, like Lauren Fox and her breath work.
Shout out to Lauren.
Which got me,
We'll link her below.
which gave me so much comfort and healing and just loving care, right? So if you have a friend, or I don't know if you'll want, if you can reach out to us, but we have friends who do breath work, and it's amazing.
An amazing breathwork
and it was
facilitator. It's very
one of the things that really helped me. And my friend Anita McGraw is a body worker. I think she's a kinesthesiologist. I'm not sure, 'cause she's a chiropractor, but she's trained in Australia. And I always feel like
she sounds like she has a lot of
chiropractors from Australia are like next level. And she was crucial, and she just really took me under her healing care and guided me for many, many, many sessions through years.
To get to that foundation.
Yeah. So shout out to people who are healers.
Yes.
That do it for a living, or have studied and worked and practiced and devoted their lives to be healers. Right.
Absolutely.
Secondly, I just wanted to say, just being curious, like you said, and being so proactive in trying to find information, research. I read so many books and listened to so many podcasts and researched so many websites and talked to so many people. And, I have gotten little nuggets, little gems that actually were crucial in growing and healing. And one of those, I read a book called Lady Parts by Deborah Kopakin, and she was friends with Nora Ephron. And because it's an autobiographical, it's a memoir, but it's also about her healing journey, which is incredible. But her friend Nora Ephron said, be the heroine and not the victim of your own life. Right? That turned me around, because I was such the victim. Just things happened to me, like you said, boom, 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 and everything came at me. And it's hard to describe, and there's no reason to tell the details, but I like to say that life crushed me like a grape. It really did. It just hit me hard in a lot of different ways that I don't even need to go into. Just trust me. And I found myself, I got pummeled. And then when I came to, many aspects of my life were completely different and very challenging. Yeah. Right? So I am aware of and do not want to play the victim, because any one of the things that I went through or was faced with happens every day, happens to a lot of different people, right? But when it happens in a perfect storm and a lot of things, happen at the same time, right. Even then, I didn't want to play the victim.
Right.
And so Nora Ephron, just that quote in that book, shifted my perspective.
It's amazing.
Of, I've got to be the heroine and not the victim of my life. So that, shout out to that book. And then, I don't know why I thought of this, but I still every book I read and everything I do, I get one little nugget that helps one aspect of my life. Yeah. I listened to Arnold Schwarzenegger's book. It's like 7 Habits to Live a Good Life or something. I can't remember the name of it. Number one, he reads it himself, and it's so fun to listen to his accent reading.
It's gotta be fun.
And so I have started weight training, lifting weights, because everybody should be doing it. I let it go for a while. I finally am lifting weights again. But the bad news is that I don't like it. I used to love it.
Oh.
So I hate it, but I'm making myself do it anyway, because I want strong bones and I want muscle mass.
Right.
And I want to be not, if I live to 90, I want to be mobile and capable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So lifting weights. If you want to be a 90-year-old badass, you got to start lifting weights right now.
Yeah.
One of my other favorite sayings is, the best time to start was 40 years ago. Yeah. The second best time to start is right now.
Right now, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I hate it. So first I have Andrew Huberman in my ear. Right. Huberman Lab podcast. absolutely obsessed with. About
He is a good podcast about psychedelics too. We'll have to link that below.
Exactly. He says that there's a part of your brain that grows stronger if you have to do things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So every time now that I have to do something I don't want to do, I think I'm strengthening my brain.
That's
so
great.
Thank you, Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
And then when I'm at the gym and I'm lifting weights and I'm thinking, ugh, I hear Arnold in my head. Right. Do the work. Do the work. Embrace the suck. You've got to do the work. You've got to do the hard part. And I'm not kidding. It gets me through my workout.
That's great.
So all these things I've mentioned, like little, you never know, is what I'm saying. You never know what is going to be the motivation that turns the corner for you.
Right.
That changes your perspective, that sets you on a different path.
Yeah.
And so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had a lot of them, and it's like I'm in a little pinball machine, and like boom, and I hear Andrew Huberman, and boom, I hear Arnold, and boom, that Nora Ephron. Like I'm just It boosts.
It's a good way to put it.
You, and it keeps you moving forward when you don't feel like you have the strength yourself.
Right. And so then we arrive to foundation. You are called. We're not 100%. I don't even remember. I remember you asking me about it and talking about it, but I don't.
Psychedelic therapy.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, how. But again, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about psychedelic therapy. So did you have some of those like narratives or misconceptions in your mind, or did you just sort of jump in and be curious and ask questions? Like, how did that work for you? I'm curious.
I just read a lot of books and listened to a lot. And I did ketamine therapy with a therapist. Okay. So that was very guided, very safe, very gradual, lots of therapy. You know, you're not just, and it's another thing Huberman said, you're not just having the psychedelic experience and woo, that's it, you're better.
Right. Doesn't work like that. I'm glad you said that because that was on my list.
Right? Yeah, no, the whole point is you're softening your brain. Yeah. You're opening up the plasticity and the neuropathways in your brain. I don't know if neuropathways is a word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. The neurotransmitter. Yeah.
Yeah. Your mind, your brain becomes more receptive to change. Yep. And so the journey itself isn't the thing. It's your integration and your therapy in the meantime and afterwards where you change.
Right.
I mean, really I am having to deal with that because the therapy is tedious.
It's not easy.
Right? But it's like it's just a boost.
There's an openness that exists when you are healing your trauma and healing from whatever you're healing from. It could be anything. There's a point in time, and you've mentioned it on the last podcast, you mentioned it today, where you're just like, oh, enough.
Yeah.
You know, enough. And sometimes that's okay. And maybe that's a time to rest, right? We're not, again, disclaimer, we're not trying to get anyone to do or make any decisions. It's, but at that point, you had said, okay, I'm ready for, I don't know if next level is the right word.
Well, I'm I plateaued and I felt like I was stuck and I needed some help and I needed more than what I needed help to the next level.
Right.
Another thing I'll mention is that it's not like I did any of this perfectly. It's not like I was an angel. It's not like I suddenly decided to live this clean and healthy life and I was so good in eating all the right foods and not drinking and sleeping and suddenly became this superhuman. No. I read Dopamine Nation. Dopamine Nation, it's a book.
I've heard of it, but
absolutely
I haven't.
Fascinating. Okay. Because most of us are addicted to one thing or another.
Oh, yeah.
It's all dopamine hits.
Yep.
It's a very user-friendly book. I thought I was afraid to read it, but then once I got into it, it was just fascinating.
I'm going to read that.
And it was how we're all addicted to one thing or another, whether it's shopping, porn, food, gambling, binge watching television, doom scrolling or social media, like everything is, we're all just like I hate to say it, but we're like the rats in the cage pressing the bar, getting
Absolutely.
the dopamine hits.
Well, the Social Network documentary outlined that.
And so,
so true.
That helped me see. However, it's not like just because I saw and learned, oh, I'm doing that because I'm getting a dopamine hit out of it. It helped me let go of some behaviors. But when I stopped drinking, I started smoking cigarettes. So I smoked cigarettes. That's a huge dopamine hit.
Yes.
And I did that for a good 2 or 3 years. Not very much, but I still did it.
Yeah.
I binge watched every episode of Below Deck that has ever been filmed. That got me through a lot. You know, did that improve the quality of my life? Did that improve the quality of my character? Absolutely not.
Yeah, but it got you.
Did it help me through a hard year? Absolutely.
No one can say they haven't been there.
Right? I mean, so I've had my and still will have my dopamine hits that aren't so great, right?
Yeah.
But I see all these kids coming into Soul Cycle, and I want to tell them all the stuff that I didn't get told when I was in my 20s and 30s.
Right.
I want to teach them and like, don't make the mistakes I did. Yeah. And so many of the things that we do to try to feel better, to try to heal, are so destructive and so not good for us, right? And now there are
it's pushed on us.
Yes, now there are all
a lot
these
of money
ways. Thank you. Now there are all these ways that are actually constructive, that are actually good for you. So I'm glad I found them when I did. I'm still not perfect, but anyway, I think so.
Oh, that's helpful.
So I did ketamine.
Yep.
I found it very helpful. I found it very pleasant. I had some very pleasant epiphanies and insights. I got very first time I did it, I got a real sense of the collective consciousness and how the be all end all answer to why we're here and what we're doing is love.
Yeah.
That's it. And I got an epiphany that every single person that you cross paths with in life, whether the barista at the coffee shop or whether your spouse or your parents or your siblings or this, that, and the other, it's all part of a grand design, and we're all in each other's lives for a reason.
And
so, and this was
that's when that all gelled for you?
Well, it's funny. You know, the things that you hope are true, or that you get signs, and you're like, was that a coincidence, or am I crazy to believe that?
Right.
When the first time I did ketamine, I got an assurance. I got a validation, you know, like, no, you're not crazy. Yes, this is true.
That's beautiful.
I don't know. Did that come from a part of my brain that I'm usually not in touch with? Did that come from the collective consciousness? I don't know. But ketamine is a dissociative. I was already dissociated from my feelings. So my therapist and I realized that's when I did more research and thought, I want to try psilocybin.
Right. Because all the different psychedelics and through psychedelic therapy, I don't want to say there's different reasons to do different ones, but again, do your research. Like, I can't impress that enough of what will work for you might not work for someone else. And interestingly enough, if I could just take like a sidebar, is, ketamine's been around. I was a club kid, right? And it's a club drug.
I never did it in the club.
And there's strong, right? I mean, you have to be really careful with any of these things. I mean, this isn't just something, you have to be careful. And I think there's a lot of dissociating escapism that exists because we're trying to get the next dopamine hit, right? So when you look at the way, a lot of narratives around this is like, oh, it's just for people that, can't hold a job, or they don't have their shit together, or whatever. And now there are true clinical trials, healing methods, retreat centers. It's come so far.
It's progress.
Yeah.
It's medical progress.
Yes.
They're discovering that it's actually helping people that were at the end of their rope, that weren't benefiting from any other treatment.
Yes. It was those people that got
it's
studied first. They tried everything else.
It's a miraculous cure for a lot of people that
Yes.
have tried a lot of different things and have had lots of trauma,
right,
and depression.
And everyone has had. I've not been on an antidepressant. I'm probably one of the only people I know that hasn't been. Who knows, right? I'd be open to it if needed, but I don't think that that's the answer. If everyone's doped up on antidepressants, and we're not feeling better and things seem to be getting worse, then maybe there is another way. Yeah, right? And
exactly.
Again, personal opinion, disclaimer, I believe that this is our way out of this cycle of hell that has been created by Big Pharma and by the medical machine. And I'm not anti that. I was in the healthcare field for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
But I always knew that there had to be another side. There just isn't one path to healing.
So I wanted to do a psilocybin journey session, but I wanted to do it with a therapist or with in a safe space with people that knew what they were doing. So this Myco Meditations in Jamaica is a wonderful, wonderful place, and they harvest their own psilocybin there. They grow the mushrooms there. There are facilitators, there are therapists there. It's beautiful. It's on the ocean. And so I went down there and I did three sessions down there. And this is when I was skinny and hopeless and depressed and just down.
Yeah.
And I was not well.
Right.
Not well. And I went down there and I did 3 sessions and I did a lot of research, like, what is it going to be like? And I thought, I'm going to have ego death. My ego is going to dissolve and I'm going to tap into the inner spaciousness and the soul and the love and I'm going to feel comforted. No, it was not like that at all.
No.
It was dark.
Yes.
It was, it was like going through the ringer. Like I went through the universal ringer. Right. Everything I researched said you'll never have any psilocybin journey that's like the other. They'll all be different. Mine were all the same.
Yeah. That is interesting.
I did not have any hallucinations. Okay. I did not have any visitations. I did not have any memories surface.
That's so interesting.
I went into a black hole. And when I emerged, I grieved. Yep. I think I grieved in 1 week, like maybe every heartache or traumatic event that had ever happened to me in my life.
Right. And that's important for people to understand. And so, what could take someone, and again, disclaimer, not for everyone, but what could take someone a number of years or decades, depending on the level of trauma and the things that have happened to you in your life.
Sure.
It is a condensed experience. That is a big part of what this is. And it's not like you were even seeking that, right? Some people seek that. They say, okay, I don't want to take in 10 years to deal with this. I'm just going to go and I'm going to handle it. May or may not work out that way, folks, but it's so big and impactful and cracks you open.
Yes.
In a way that if you're chipping away, right, it's going to take longer. If somebody comes in and goes, wham, then boom, right? And you were able to grieve and feel, yes?
Oh, God, did I feel.
Right, it just all came.
I wasn't looking for a fast track to anything.
No, you weren't, but some people do.
But... yeah, just to grieve. I guess I just needed to grieve. And I know what I wanted to do was get better physically. Right. So I was hoping to actually heal my physical body, the cells of my body. So I thought this kind of experience would turn my physical health around. And I kind of think it did.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, that's...
The body keeps the score. I bring that book up in every episode of this podcast. It's true. Like it's stored in your cells.
Yeah. So the first 2 sessions were dark and black, and they weren't, number one, I was not scared. They were not scary.
Yeah.
Because they prep you.
Yeah.
And they say, just go with the flow. Just surrender.
And these are a number of people. Like, explain to us, you show up day one.
Oh,
right?
yeah. You show up and there's about...
What goes on?
There's about 10 other people, and we got in a circle in a hut next to the beach, and we told our stories and why we were there. And so the group therapy started day one.
Right.
And it was a lot of group therapy. Like, the whole week was a week of group therapy.
Yeah.
Like, by the end, I was like, no more group therapy. But they prep you, and there's like a facilitator for every two people, there, and there's a therapist, and then there's the week leader.
Right.
And they're like, just the more, don't resist it, trust it.
Right.
The medicine knows what you need, what you need to be revealed, what you need to heal. Trust the journey.
That's beautiful.
And so I wasn't scared at any point. And I also knew it was temporary.
Right.
Right? I didn't have any fear of, oh my God, I'm not going to get my brain back.
Yeah, that's a very big narrative. I actually wrote that on the list of narratives, that you'll lose your mind.
Yeah, no.
In a good way.
Right.
Right. It's not.
I do not like marijuana because I do not like not being in control. I do not like not being able to control my thoughts. However, like for this psilocybin, I knew it was temporary, and there was no fear.
You surrendered to it.
I did. I totally surrendered every single one.
And trust and surrender go together.
The third one was a high dose, and not only did I go into a black hole, but my body physically, it was as though I had electrodes connected to my body, and my whole body for about 3 or 4 hours convulsed and let go, and shook and convulsed and shed and just I remember it was almost like I was going through some sort of purgatory or some sort of process, and it was not pleasant, it was not fun, it wasn't scary, but it was hard, and it was arduous, and it was brutal. Like it's hard to describe, but I remember I had one rational thought at one time, and I remember thinking to myself, Sue, what made you think this was going to be easy?
Right.
Middle of it. You're bottom barrel of your life, and you've got all this shit that happened and all this trauma, and you're and you thought coming down here and doing this was going to be easy? Like, you thought purging and processing this out of your body was not going to...
I'm glad you just said that, because that is so important. So for everyone, it's very important. It is a purging and processing of what exists in our body. If we don't have this taken care of, right? If we can't unlock what has been stored in here, we are never going to heal. That's so important.
So I just almost laughed at myself. Like, you thought, how did you think this was going to be easy? But then I just went back.
I love that your ego was like, hey, I'm still here.
Right. So then I just then I went back in and continued to process and purge.
Oh, okay. So you have 3 sessions over the course of, 5 or 6 days, whatever. And then, let's fast forward to you return home, right? And you're home, and you're going through what I would call an integration, because whenever you have any type of energetic or, at this psychedelic therapy, there is an integration time. So
that was
what was
fine.
That like?
That was okay.
Yeah.
I just, everybody you get to know the other people that are there, and you become very close and very, very mutually supportive and encouraging, and actually quite wonderful. I loved the people at Myco Meditations. I love the CEO and his wife. I loved everything about it. Okay. And I stayed in contact with some of the other people that, that were there when I was there. And, I kind of just settled in and trusted the process. I didn't try to fast track anything. I didn't try to find anything out or figure anything out. I just went about living life.
Would you say you remained open in a new way?
For probably a month after, I felt lighter and more open and free. And then slowly real life crept in, and my old defenses crept in, and the old voices. I'm also working with an IFS therapist now. Yep. That's another thing that's come into my life, internal family systems.
Wonderful.
Where his philosophy is you have different parts of yourself that
I've done that
protect you.
Yep.
And so I feel like the different parts woke back up.
Right.
So, and that's why the healing is a continuing journey. It's not like you reach, in my experience, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but you don't reach this level and suddenly you're healed and you're good to go and you get to enjoy the rest of your life.
I don't know that there's Mecca on this planet with that.
And I am going to enjoy the rest of my life.
Right.
However, there's more work to be done.
It's not, I think what you're saying is you don't want anyone to think that like you do any one thing and then boom,
good to go.
Life does not work like that.
So, and I have continued actually. One of the women that I was in Jamaica with recommended a therapist to me, a psychedelic therapist in New York, and I've been working with him. And he and I are continuing the journey. And so I did a couple of MDMA sessions with him.
That's right.
None of the sessions I've done have been recreationally fun.
Right.
But I did the first MDMA. It was similar to the ketamine, where I broke open in certain ways.
Yeah.
With revelations of forgiveness and connectedness and freedom, and a lot of physical purging too.
Yeah.
But more gentle.
Right.
In the MDMA session, I found my body just started with, just like shaking like this.
I've had that happen in meditation.
And like different parts and like,
right.
I have different parts of my, like I had a little bit of frozen shoulder at one point. So this shoulder carries a lot. So different parts of my body were just starting to shake and let go. And I instinctively started oming.
Oh, I love that.
And I'm not
a big omer.
I'm not a big chanter. Like I'm not in the yoga class where everybody's chanting.
That's amazing.
Like,
it just happened.
I just felt from the inside out, like
it's healing.
It's a release.
Yes.
It's a release.
Absolutely.
So I did it deep. I did om. I did om.
Right.
Like I did a lot of vocal releasing. I did a lot of energetic releasing, like shaking, and at one point I started tapping myself. I just knocked on my whole body and just tapped myself and tapped all the parts and like got my heart center and I don't know. I just went with the flow. I went with the flow. I rode the wave where it took me.
Right.
I'll ride the wave where it takes me. Thank you, Eddie Vedder. And I just did. And I just did whatever felt that I was called to do. My therapist is so sweet. I love him. When he was just like, it was such an honor to witness your session. Sure. And he said, just the way you were, just the way I was going with the flow, like he made me feel like that was such an accomplishment,
Well, it is, because we beat up against the flow all the time in life. And we're kind of taught in the collective unconscious to do that. We're very disconnected from ourselves. You were so connected in with your soul and your body.
I suppose.
And you were just you were giving it space and trust to just let it do what it's been probably dying to do for years, right?
What I said to him, I said, doesn't everybody do that? He's like, no. I said, what do they do? He said, they fight it.
Yep. I was just going to say, and
I was like,
but isn't that what we do? Think about it, right? As humans,
Yes.
That's what we do. We
Yes.
fight it. And the surrendering and the trusting, and see, the conversation always goes where it's supposed to go. That is the biggest thing when it comes to psychedelic medication and psychedelics in general. You know, people say, oh, someone had a bad trip. It's because they tried to fight it, right? Or someone had an
Yes.
issue. It's because they tried to fight it. I had an issue with a psychedelic substance years ago. And I'm not going to share that story because it's embarrassing. But yeah, I was resisting.
It's the resistance. The resistance is
Right.
where you fail. I mean, fail's probably not the right word, but you get into trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that third psilocybin thing I did, I actually spoke out loud to myself, probably for 4 hours straight. Let go, let go,
Right.
let go.
Right.
Go with Sue. Just go with the flow.
Interestingly enough,
let go,
that
Sue.
happens a lot with energy therapy as well. I've been in sessions where I've said that to myself. It's interesting how, you know, whatever dial you're on or how deep you want to go with this, there's still that common thread, right? Of surrendering and trusting and being curious and moving forward, right? You kept moving forward. And as you sit here today, you are still doing it. And I believe you will continue to do it. You're just going to keep moving forward. That's all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is like,
Well, I mean, you
let
know,
go.
sometimes it's 2 steps forwards, 1 step back, but do the best you can.
Right.
You
And
know?
don't get discouraged. And you mentioned this before, be patient. Right,
Oh,
is
yeah.
huge. I mean, you know, don't go into it with a bunch of expectations either. Like, I love that you said that you went down to Jamaica and you were like, okay, I wasn't scared, but you didn't have some big agenda. You weren't like, oh, I'm going to cure all my problems in this weekend or this week or whatever it is that you did. You are in it. And there is such an amazing and beautiful, and I want you to hear this, amount of presence that it requires to be on the journey that you're in. And sometimes I feel like you don't see it because you're so in it, but I observe as your friend.
Well, thanks for saying that.
And you're just so in it, right? You're so unbelievably present. How is it that your body is able to really let go, psychedelics or not? It's because you're not here. You're here. You're here.
Yeah.
And psychedelic therapy can assist with that. But ultimately, you have to make the choice.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, and I regret to say that that's the end of my experience to date.
For now.
Next up is ayahuasca,
Yeah.
which I've never been called to do,
Yeah.
but I listened to a podcast of a doctor who did ayahuasca, and he just said, I think everyone should do ayahuasca. He said, I think it would benefit everyone.
There's a good, I have a recommendation for you
Okay. So,
of a healing center.
yeah, that's next.
Okay.
And I cannot recommend psychedelic therapy strongly enough. Like, it has been the game changer for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of work too. And like I said, it's not like it's been fun. But
look at
it
you
takes
just here.
you to the next level.
Right. And I look at you today, and again, you know, for those who haven't listened to the other episode, I've been with Sue standing by her side, this journey that she's been on, and look at you. Like, you are.
Well, I mean, you know, I have good days and bad days.
course,
it's not
but-
like life is great. Oh, and speaking of
But as
which,
you sit here, right? Like, there's another
I'm
side.
grateful.
There's
I'm
another
super
side,
grateful.
for sure.
And I'm excited about what's to come.
Right.
Someone asked me that hadn't seen me in a while, how are you doing? And I said, I'm okay. You know, I'm okay, which was a different answer than they've gotten in the past 3 years. Because I'm honest, when people say, hey, how are you? I'll let you know how exactly how
There's
I
no
am.
bullshit. And
Yeah,
no
I'm not the type that says, oh,
or
I'm,
here.
I'm fine. How are you? But someone said, how are you? And I said, I'm doing okay. You know, they said, really?
That's great.
They said, your life got better? I said, no.
You're like, I'm better.
My life did not get better.
Yeah.
I got better.
Get another clap for that.
And I realized it as I said it.
Yep.
No, my life is not better,
It's an inside job.
but I got better.
It's an inside job. And when you shift and you change your makeup and your perspective,
Well, so
things are shifting.
there's ups
Things
and
will
downs. There's good days
course.
and bad days. You know, do I still have the occasional
Yeah.
cigarette? Maybe.
Right.
but it really is occasional, thank God. But
And there's a lot going on. I mean, the fact that we're all going through this, I mean, it's quite, not to be negative, it's quite a hellscape out there, so it's like you can come in and out, but we still have to deal with the external world. When you're grounded and centered and you're healing yourself, things do become different in your perspective, right? And I think if you can get to a place, this is where I'm trying to get to a place, is can I be grounded and be in my purpose and serve others? That's like,
yes,
can I get to the place where I feel healed enough that I can come on this podcast and share, or do what I want to do with my consulting business or whatever, right? It's like, can I be present for that? That's my goal. And there's days when I'm like,
that's a noble goal.
Yeah. There's days when I have my days. It's tough energy. It's hard.
Yeah. I'm obviously still learning a lot, but that is what I'm looking for. That's my next chapter. Is I want to. I already feel like what I do is of service, and it is healing in a lot of ways. But I would like to find another avenue for that. I would like to be a healer. That is what I aspire to be. Is to be one of the people like in my life that have helped me heal. I would like to. I feel like I already do that on the bike.
You do that, and you're doing that here.
With the music, but I want to continue and find new avenues. In which to do that.
I love that for you.
And I think what you're doing is that kind of service.
Thank you.
So it's an honor to be here.
Thank you. And it is. It's fulfilling a purpose. I'm sure you feel that too. Our pain is our purpose, right? And what you've been through has been incredibly painful, and it's hard. And if you talking about like true serving others, you either serve or you suffer. You could take your experiences. So I'm gonna keep this for myself, and I'm not going to share. And that is what it is. No judgment. But that's not who you are, and that's not what you want out of life.
Well, I'm grateful for that, because I could be drowning my sorrows and resentful and bitter and going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
It sounds so corny, but like going towards the dark instead of going towards the light. It's really
said.
A choice you got to make sometimes.
And it's a daily choice, especially right now. It's a lot of dark energy.
It really is.
And the dark serves a purpose. But you cannot live in the dark. Just like you can't always live in the light. And healing is what helps you oscillate.
So I hope I get to come back and talk about ayahuasca. And then you mentioned DMT, and you can include this or not. But I think my therapist that I love that hugged me after my MDMA session, he talks about toad venom.
Right.
There's a chemical in toad venom that is like one of the top dogs of psychedelics.
Yeah, it's probably like bigger than ayahuasca.
And I feel like DMT. Yesterday, I think he told me that DMT is that chemical.
Interesting.
From toad venom.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is Michael Pollan mentioned in his book that he was the worst thing that ever happened to him is 24 hours of sheer hell, and he would never do it again. Right. And my therapist said that he had the opposite experience, and he truly, truly experienced divine connection and connecting with his spiritual guides.
That's amazing.
So there's DMT. There's also, he said ayahuasca is considered grandmother. Very nurturing, very comforting, very supportive. And there's Impagen. There's something we'll have to look it up for the next.
Okay.
I might be getting that name wrong, but they've just discovered it's the best psychedelic therapy for addiction.
Wow. Okay.
And they call it grandfather.
Okay.
Because it is not
interesting,
nice and comforting and gentle like grandmother.
And that's just the feminine and masculine energies. It's just different energy. Yeah.
So there are other levels of psychedelic therapy in which I will partake in time, very guided and very structured with my therapist, and I look forward to continuing to grow and learn.
Love that.
Yeah.
And coming back and sharing it all with us. Yay! You guys are so lucky. Okay, so, kind of to wrap it up, and thank you so much for that. And
Thanks for
it's been so
doing this. Thanks for having me.
amazing to talk about something that I felt so passionate about for so many years, and to come here and see and have been able to witness with love, your journey and other people in my life that have been going through psychedelic journeys of their own. And it's just amazing. It's very age of Aquarius, right? To bring in the astrology. It's very much, this age of great change and new ways of doing and new ways of thinking and really pushing the boundaries. Like what we have does not work. That we know. So what are we going to do? Right? We have to try new things and we have to be curious. Disclaimer, not saying that you should do it, saying it as a general comment, right? So I guess the biggest question, kind of two parts, and you can take this however, is how do you think psychedelic therapy has changed your life? And then what do you hope others can get from psychedelic therapy?
Well, I just feel like psychedelics gave me an assist when I needed it.
It's well stated, yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
I'm super curious about consciousness and ego and the afterlife. And if this is a way to get closer to that or more understanding of that, I'm all for it. We do so many things that are so bad for us.
Yeah, we do.
All the stuff we ingest and drink and eat and put on our bodies. And, we have so, like, these compounds are actually beneficial when used in the right way. And
that is going to be proven as the years to come more and more. It will be to the point where nobody can disprove it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of skepticism still, but I truly believe with my heart that there will be a point where there'll be enough studies that people are like, yeah.
I feel like they're helping me be a better person, a better version of myself. Turn my frown upside down, and not in the session itself, but the process.
Right.
And maybe help my poor little brain recover a little bit from the process of the last 55 years of my life, and the hardening and the ruts and the patterns and the habits, and just having an assist to soften that in order to maybe take a better route.
Right.
I'm all for that. I think a lot of us could use that.
Yeah.
And then what was the second part of the question?
I think you just answered the question.
Yeah.
What do you hope for others? I mean, that's it. A way to really be able to soften and open. And we have been through a lot, and maybe giving ourselves a little grace, taking a beat, looking at things in a different way, perspective shifts, more surrender, more trust in the process. More connecting to spirit, connecting to ourselves.
It is all the good things. It's belief, it's hope, it's faith, it's connection, it's love, it's mind expansion. It really is.
It's a freaking great answer, by the way. It's an amazing answer. And guess what? Literally perfect time.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much for being here. Cheers, honey. We cheers with water now.
It's an honor.
There's nothing wrong with cheersing with water. Thank you so much for joining us in the space between. We hope this conversation sparked connection for you. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who will find value. And make sure to tune into our next episode as we continue the journey into the core themes of our lives. We'll see you again in the space between.